Every game franchise has some kind of mystery involved in it, whether it is inside or outside of the actual game itself. And for every unanswered question regarding a certain piece of lore or aspect of a video game, theories will be created to try to answer said question, and Sonic is no exception to this. Sonic fan theories are found all around the internet nowadays. Given the franchise's numerous mysteries and inconsistencies with the stories, fan theories would naturally come about. However, there is a subsection of fan theories that don't necessarily have any solid evidence behind them, but they still make a ton of sense when you think about it. Those are what we like to call conspiracy theories. There are several wild conspiracy theories regarding Sonic scattered around subreddits and forums alike. So I picked out 10 of the wackiest, yet most convincing conspiracy theories about Sonic media. So let's see if any of them actually hold up. Ugly Movie Sonic was a publicity stunt. Yeah, we're starting with by far the most popular Sonic conspiracy theory. When the first trailer of the Sonic movie was released, people heavily criticized Sonic's design for looking terrifying. It was so bad to the point where the trailer faced major backlash, with people saying the movie was going to be terrible. All of this backlash eventually led Paramount to announce a delay for the movie so they could fully redesign Sonic to make him look more like, well, Sonic. And when the movie was eventually released with the new design, people loved it. The success of the first movie caused the creation of the Sonic movie cinematic universe, which wouldn't have happened at all if the original design stayed. However, many people believe that this design currently seen in the Sonic movies was always supposed to be the design they were going with, meaning that the awful ugly movie Sonic in the trailer was made intentionally to gather people's attention for the movie. This whole thing follows the idea that all publicity is good publicity, because even though the trailer received a lot of backlash for Sonic's design, it brought the Sonic movie into the spotlight, whether it was for good or bad reasons. And when they announced that they were redesigning Sonic, people praised them even more. Would people still have given the same amount of praise to the movie if this was the design from the start? I honestly don't know. So was this ugly movie Sonic design intentionally made to gather publicity for the movie? Well, no, definitely not. There are many inconsistencies to this theory, mainly because why would they go through this much effort just for marketing? Mind you, this trailer was not the only time we saw this ugly movie Sonic design. I think this post from a deleted user on the Sonic movie subreddit sums up my thoughts quite nicely. So they invest millions of dollars in fake posters, fake toy leaks, fake poster leaks, fake design leaks, a fake trailer with poorly chosen licensed music, a shoe deal that appeared on the Puma website, fake redesign seminars where they pay people to come in and pretend they're Paramount people talking about the design so they can leak it, paying off Tyson Hesse and telling him to pretend he made the redesign and delay their movie from being just in time from Christmas, for marketing on an already over budget movie that has had 3 real leaks in October. Sorry pal, not buying it. Yeah. Well said, unknown Reddit user. So yeah, this theory very much falls apart when you look slightly below the surface. At first, this theory somewhat makes sense when you just look at the trailer and see how terrible the design is. But when you look at everything outside of the trailer that uses the design, the theory seems like a massive reach. So I'm going to say this theory is entirely unlikely. It could still be true, but from a business standpoint, Paramount only would have been losing time and resources by intentionally making Sonic's design bad. But at the same time, would they be making that much money off of the Sonic movies without the redesign? This is just a massive paradox, and we can be here all day, so let's just move on. Sonic's world is created by Eggman. When you look at the original Sonic games, what do you normally think about when playing them? For me at least, I usually just worry about trying to finish the levels as quickly as possible while using the level design to assist me. But have you ever actually paid close attention to the level design in these games? I'm not talking about the actual design philosophy, but rather what the levels are made up of. Almost every classic Sonic level has its fair share of spikes, enemies, death pits, and just so many other hazards placed everywhere. What if Eggman intentionally placed all of this stuff in Sonic's world so Sonic wouldn't stop his evil schemes? This theory does make sense, because why else would all of these traps and roadblocks be in Sonic's way? This does make me question why Eggman didn't go further with this idea though. While there are many things in the world to stop Sonic, there are also many things that help Sonic, like loops and tunnels for Sonic to roll through. Why would Eggman place these if he knew Sonic was just going to roll through them and gain a ton of speed? Not to mention how there are several other things in the environment to help Sonic reach the goal quicker. So does this theory hold up? Well, kinda. My theory is that Sonic's world originally had all of the things that help him progress in the levels, like the loops and whatnot, but Eggman is the one who added all of the spikes and stuff later to stop Sonic. This is also reflected in many levels throughout the Sonic series. For example, levels like Marble Zone and Hilltop have beautiful environments on the surface, but for some reason, there's just lava that will kill you if you fall in it. Why is there lava in an environment like this? Well, what if Eggman placed it to try and stop stop Sonic. Now it makes much more sense. So in a sense, I do think this theory is likely. Sega released the wrong Sonic 06 build. We all know how much of a broken mess Sonic 06 is. There are so many bugs and glitches, and it's just an awfully designed game. All of this caused 06's reception to be terrible at launch, and even nowadays it's considered as one of the worst video games ever made. When the game came out, people were shocked by just how broken and unfinished it was. How could a game as broken as this get approved to be released? But what if this version of the game isn't the version that they meant to release? What if they released a buggy and unfinished build of the game instead of the finished build? If you look at any piece of 06 pre-release footage, you can probably agree with me when I say that many aspects look better than how they do in the final game. The animations look smoother, the lighting looks better, and from what I can tell, the physics and controls look more responsive. This just looks like a better game than what we eventually got. Now, games featuring better visuals and whatnot in demos to make the game look better as a tech showcase is nothing new, and it's still something that's practiced in Sonic games today. However, there are things in many pieces of pre-release footage that were just outright removed from 06 for no reason. The homing attack animations, for example, look so much better. Sonic doesn't just repeat the same animation after he homing attacks something multiple times. Why was that removed from the final game if it just looked better? And the weird thing about it is that these animations are actually in the final game but are only triggered when using the white gem. Why? And then there are just so many things promised to be in the game that just weren't. Looking in the game's instruction manual, the thing that came with the game, there are features and items shown in the manual that aren't in the game. The manual details a shield item being present in the game, but it's just not there. The manual also mentions that Shadow's Chaos Blast wipes out everything on screen when in the final game, it just doesn't. Usually, instruction manuals are made after the game is finalized for release. So why are there features in the instruction manual that just don't show up? Maybe it's because the manual was made for a more finished build of the game. But is it even possible for a company as big as Sega to rush out an unfinished build of their next-gen massive Sonic game on accident? Well, considering that Sega just loves to rush things out for the holiday season regardless of the quality, then I wouldn't put it past them. But for something as drastic as this, I just don't think it's very possible. Yeah, the stuff in the manual and early footage is very interesting, but I just don't think a mistake as big as releasing the wrong build of the game is very likely. Maybe they just accidentally deleted some of the data, because I just don't see how this is supposed to be the finished product, but I really don't have any other explanation. So I'm going to say this theory is unlikely, but it's still very interesting to think about. But that's not the end of this theory, we're going to come back to this later. Sonic is not actually blue. Alright, this one is kinda stupid, but I thought it was funny, so let's talk about it. Now, when I say that Sonic is not actually blue, I'm not calling anybody colorblind or anything, because this color is blue, don't worry. But what if Sonic doesn't have blue fur, and instead he's just wearing some sort of hedgehog suit? Sounds crazy, I know, but this is a conspiracy theory after all, so bear with me here. This theory all started in July 2020, when the official Sonic Instagram account posted a meme showing off Sonic's daily schedule. And at 11:30 p.m. on the schedule, it says that Sonic takes off his hedgehog suit, implying that Sonic isn't actually a blue hedgehog. Even though this was just a simple joke post from the Sonic social media manager, it did get everyone very speculative, and they started to find some quote-unquote evidence supporting this theory. In many of the official Sonic renders, you can see that where Sonic's arm connects to his torso, it looks like the fur isn't fur, but instead it's a sleeve of some sort. This same thing is found in many of the CG cutscenes as well. And in Knuckles Chaotix, there's a Sonic sprite that has tan legs, which is very disturbing. Alright, so yeah, obviously this is just a joke by the Sonic Instagram account, and the other stuff is just a result of sprite and render errors, so there's not much else to say here. This theory is entirely unlikely, but honestly, it could be true, I guess. The Sonic Chronicles OST was accidentally deleted. Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood for the Nintendo DS is by far one of the worst Sonic games out there. Literally every aspect of this game is terrible, including the music, which surprised many because pretty much every other Sonic game, whether it was fun or not, had a great soundtrack. And while all of them weren't fantastic or anything, they were at the very least passable. But the Chronicles soundtrack is quite literally ear-piercing, as they are just shitty remixes of tracks from previous Sonic games. Nothing more. What the quote-unquote composers did was drag different MIDI files from different Sonic games onto a VST and called it a day. That's why all of these remixes are pretty terrible. But why is the OST so half-baked like this? Well, the leading theory is that BioWare actually had a fully composed soundtrack made for this game, but most of it was just gone by the time the game was released. So they had to panic and just make some MIDI remixes to fill the gap. And there are still fully composed songs in the game, mainly the battle theme, so that further contributes to this theory. But as for the rest rest of the soundtrack, many believe that it was either scrapped due to legal reasons or they just accidentally deleted it, but nobody knows. This is still a huge mystery, but if you ask me, the soundtrack being deleted just makes more sense. If some of the soundtrack was cut for legal reasons, then why wasn't the whole soundtrack cut? Some songs being deleted is much more likely because you can easily just accidentally delete files. I do it all the time. So while these songs could have been cut for legal reasons, I truly think a lot of it was deleted, making this theory very likely in my opinion. Hopefully one day we uncover the original soundtrack of Sonic Chronicles, because what we have now is just terrible. I don't think a fully original soundtrack would have saved the game from being terrible, but it would be cool nonetheless. Every Sonic character knows they're in a video game. Ah yes, a classic fourth wall theory. So yeah, basically everybody in the Sonic series knows that they're in a video game, and all of these events happening in the games are just for show. Ever notice how Sonic and gang would just constantly break the fourth wall in many of the games? This whole fourth wall breaking thing started in the 2010s due to the tonal shift in the Sonic series. Games like Colors, Lost World, and even Sonic Boom all have moments where Sonic is breaking the fourth wall. In Colors, he even directly talks to the audience in one of the tropical resort cutscenes. But you know, breaking the fourth wall in cutscenes, that's just a normal cartoon trope. But it also happens during actual gameplay, especially in the classic games. If you wait around without doing anything for too long, Sonic will stare at the screen and tap his foot. In Sonic 3, he even points to the right to tell the player to hurry the hell up. In Sonic CD, if you wait around for too long, he says, "I'm out of here," and outright quits because the player isn't doing anything. So he just leaves. So the Sonic characters, or at least Sonic, seem to know that this is all just a video game and not something real. Now, while I don't think this theory is impossible, I do think it's highly unlikely. This isn't a Super Mario Bros. 3 situation where they tell us that it's just a show, but rather, this is just simply breaking the fourth wall for comedic effect and player engagement. That's it. And these jokes are fairly uncommon anyway. They only happen a couple of times in Colors, and honestly, those are the only times I can think of off the top of my head, so I think this theory is unlikely. Moving on, Nintendo caused Sonic Extreme to be cancelled. Yes, Sonic Extreme, the debut 3D Sonic game that was said to be cancelled for time constraints and lack of resources. Near the end of this project's development, the developers were so understaffed to the point where there were only a few people still working on it. Yeah, it was pretty bad, so they had to cancel it. But what if there was another entity involved in this whole thing? What if Nintendo played a role in its cancellation? Let me explain. Super Mario 64, Nintendo's debut 3D platformer, was very successful. It did almost everything right for the type of game it was trying to be, and that's why today it is considered as one of the best 3D platformers of all time, and I couldn't agree more. Now, back in the 90s, Sonic and Mario were huge gaming rivals. I'm sure we're all aware of this by now. However, with both of their 3D debuts scheduled to be released around the same time, speculation began to occur when Sonic's first 3D title got cancelled while Mario was taking the spotlight. The theory is that Nintendo somehow sent a disguised employee to try and sabotage Sonic Extreme's development, and some theorize that the person is none other than Yuji Naka, but we'll get into that whole thing later. So yeah, Nintendo was being greedy like they have always been, and wanted to kill the competition so their new console and Mario game could succeed. But here's the cherry on top. Super Mario 64, along with the N64, released on June 23rd, 1996. Does that date look at all familiar to you? Well, it's actually Sonic's 5th anniversary. Yeah, crazy, I know. The theory is that Nintendo sabotaged Sonic Extreme and sent it into development hell, and then released their brand new revolutionary Mario game and console on Sonic's birthday as a means to mock Sega. Would Nintendo ever stoop this low though? Honestly, I wouldn't put it past them. Nintendo has always been known for doing just plain greedy and scummy things in the gaming industry. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they wanted to kill the competition for their brand new Mario game. Do I think this is true? No, not really. I don't think any of these theories are true, but I do think this one is kind of likely. Sonic and his friends are humans. Y'all are really going to have to bear with me on this one. Do you ever notice how there's just a ton of stuff in Sonic games that doesn't ever line up with what actually happens? Like, Sonic says he runs at the speed of sound, but he just doesn't. If he did, we wouldn't be able to see him. Maybe Sonic and friends are just human kids pretending to be super fast animals, and Eggman is their parent or guardian who is just watching them play around. This theory was posted by Dat Queen Burrito, but was apparently started by retired Mickey Mouse, in which it reads, "There's a theory going around that our beloved Blue Hedgehog and his friends don't exist in their actual dimension. You see, how do people go faster than the speed of sound? By machine, right? Well, by the human-animal race, running by itself isn't very fast. The theory states that Eggman was just a parent/guardian playing along, while the kids, the characters, Sonic, Tails, etc., pretended to be humanoid teenagers with special abilities. Their guardian is just probably a mechanic or inventor, not some crazed robot-making weirdo. You know how the Smash Bros. Games are just a kid playing with all of his Nintendo toys and Master Hand is just the kid's hand controlling all of them? This is a very similar situation, but instead of toys, the characters are just kids, and Eggman is just playing along with whatever game they're playing. Now, if you apply this to literally any piece of fictional media out there, then it will make sense. If I'm like, what if Mario isn't actually a plumber and it's just some kid pretending to be a plumber, and Bowser is not really a scary turtle, he's just the kid's dad in a giant Halloween costume, then obviously it will make sense because there's really nothing there to debunk it. So from my personal judgment, I'm just going to say it's unlikely, because hey, these Sonic stories get pretty complex to the point where I don't think a child could be imagining all of this and building up this extensive lore. So yeah. No. Yuji Naka intentionally tried to kill the Sonic series. So this one stems from the 06 one and the Sonic Extreme one. Yuji Naka, one of the people responsible for Sonic's creation, has made a ton of changes to the Sonic series. First, it was 2D, and that was fine enough, but when Sonic Extreme came around, he came in midway through development and told people, hey, we gotta start over, because I don't want us to use the brand new Nights into Dreams engine, even though they already had a ton of progress done on Extreme. He didn't care, he just wanted to use a different engine for some reason and keep the Nights one private. He did deny this decades later, but by that point, the damage was already done. So that's why I think he could have been the Nintendo employee who sabotaged the game. Maybe he was paid off by Nintendo to do that. Throughout Sonic's history, Naka was just not a fun person to work with, and he even threatened to quit midway through several game developments numerous times. And when he was involved with a non-Sonic game, that game being Billy Hatcher, he bragged about being able to make a game that wasn't a Sonic game. It just seemed like he never enjoyed being a part of the series and wanted it out of the spotlight as much as possible. His departure from Sonic Team in 2006 made people believe that he also had something to do with Sonic 06's failure and the unplayable state that the game was released in. Was he the one who intentionally released an unfinished and buggy build of the game to try and kill the series? If he was very close to being successful. But after he left Sonic Team, there was a tonal shift in the franchise soon after that would ultimately put the series back on track for like a couple of years, and then this happened. Man, why can't we have nice things? To be completely honest with you, I can kinda see this being true. All evidence points to the fact that Yuji Naka was and still is not the nicest person to work with in the gaming industry. And considering that what he was doing with Sonic Extreme ultimately made the game worse in every way possible, then this theory is very likely if you ask me. Thankfully, the Sonic series is still here and well today, but ever since Sonic 06, people haven't looked at the franchise the same. Was Yuji Naka the reason behind all of that? I mean, it makes sense. Tails died in Sonic 2, and the current Tails is not real. Ah yes, we had to get a darker theory on here somewhere, and you know what? Let me set the mood real quick. Alexa, turn off the lights. Did that work? Hey Google, turn off the lights. Oh, now I can't see. Anyway, in Sonic 2, no, not that Sonic 2, the 8-bit version of Sonic 2 for the Master System and Game Gear, there are two possible endings. So in the game, Tails gets kidnapped by Eggman and we have to save him. If we collect all of the Chaos Emeralds, then we save him and everything's good. However, if we fail to get all of the Chaos Emeralds, then the game ends with Sonic running in a field all alone, and then he looks up at the sky and sees Tails. Is Tails f***ing dead? When we don't save Tails, Eggman keeps him hostage and supposedly, he dies. And the craziest part is that Eggman uses Tails to create Infinite and Sonic Forces. And when you think about it, Infinite and Tails have a lot in common. They were both seen as outcasts because of their uniqueness. Both of their names are similar. Infinite means unlimited or just an insane amount, while miles is a huge unit of measurement. Do you see the correlation there? And their tails also look kinda similar. The only difference being that Tails has two of them, of course. But if Tails died in Sonic 2 and was turned into Infinite, then who is the Tails seen in every Sonic game after Sonic 2? Is he just a figment of Sonic's imagination? Maybe a robot created by Eggman? I mean, that wouldn't be entirely out of the ordinary since Shadow isn't an actual hedgehog, but he looks like he could be one. Maybe Eggman did the same as Gerald and made a fake version of Tails to be friends with Sonic so he didn't realize he died. There's just a lot to this theory. Is it true though? Yeah, no, absolutely not. This Tails constellation in the sky was literally just meant to tell the player that, oops, you didn't save Tails, play the game again to actually save him, and nothing more. This theory is highly unlikely because I don't think Sega would be that dark, especially in the game that introduced Tails. So yeah, Infinite is Infinite, and Tails is still the Tails he has always been. So are any of these conspiracy theories true? No. Probably not. But that doesn't mean they aren't interesting to think about. Conspiracy theories are honestly some of my favorite types of theories because they're just so wacky and shocking, but when you start to think about them, they make some sort of sense. And when I learned about all of these Sonic conspiracy theories, I just had to make a video on it. So yeah, those were a handful of Sonic conspiracy theories. Let me know what your favorites are in the comments down below. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.